The proximity alarms on orbital station Zenith began as a whisper. At first, the technicians dismissed them as routine calibration errors, the kind that plagued any installation housing hundreds of different species technologies. But within moments, the whispers became screams as every sensor array across the station's vast circumference lit up simultaneously. Spatial anomaly detected in Sector 7, announced the primary RASK operator, her scaled fingers moving with practiced precision across the holographic interface. Magnitude, unprecedented. Commander Vashik of the Eosari Diplomatic Corps pushed through the gathering crowd of officials, his luminescent skin pulsing with blues and greens that betrayed his agitation. "Show me." The main view screen flickered to life, displaying what appeared to be a tear in the fabric of reality itself. A wound in space-time that glowed with energies that defied the station's analytical systems. From within this impossible rift, something was emerging. "Identify," ordered Vashik, his voice tight with controlled fear. The Urgathy analyst beside him chittered nervously, mandibles clicking as they consulted multiple displays. Configuration appears to be human-made, but the readings are impossible. As the anomaly widened, a massive vessel slid into normal space. Its silhouette was vaguely familiar, the elongated hull and distinctive nacelle configuration marking it as human in origin, but there the familiarity ended. The ship's surface rippled with subtle patterns that seemed to both absorb and emit light in ways that violated the known laws of physics. Sections of the hull appeared to phase in and out of concrete existence, as though the vessel existed partially in another dimension. "Cross-reference with registry archives," commanded Vashik, his skin now pulsing with rapid flashes of white, the Eosari equivalent of profound shock. "Match found," responded the computer system after an unnaturally long pause. "Human stellar ship Aurora. Last recorded trajectory. Exploration mission to the Tyrrhenian Void, 11 standard years ago. Status: presumed destroyed following catastrophic drive failure." A hush fell over the command center. The Aurora had been one of humanity's most ambitious deep space vessels, a symbol of their burgeoning presence in the Galactic Council. Its destruction had been mourned across species lines, one of those rare tragedies that transcended political boundaries. But the vessel before them could not possibly be the Aurora they remembered. That ship had been impressive by the standards of 11 years past. This was something else entirely. The energy signatures emanating from it defied categorization. "Alert the Council immediately," Vashik managed, his voice barely above a whisper. "And establish a containment perimeter. No vessel approaches or leaves until we understand what we're dealing with." The Urgathy analyst suddenly jerked upright. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission, encrypted, on an outdated Council emergency frequency. It's addressed specifically to Security Protocol Omicron." Vashik's skin blanched to pure white. Protocol Omicron was reserved for existential threats to the Council itself. "What does it say?" he demanded. The analyst's voice trembled as they recited the short message. "We have returned, not alone." Within the hour, an emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the vaulted chamber of Concord Hall. Representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations gathered in tiered seating that encircled a central projection dais where the image of the Aurora hung, rotating slowly to display its transformed state. High Counselor Trian of the RASK Confederacy stood at the primary podium, her ceremonial scales shimmering under the chamber's lights. "We face an unprecedented situation," she began, her translator converting her sibilant speech into the Council's standard lingua franca. "A human vessel, long presumed destroyed, has returned to Council space exhibiting technological capabilities that appear to violate at least 7 provisions of the Treaty of Technological Containment." Ambassador Kreth from the Urgathy Collective rose from his seat, clicking his mandibles in the pattern that indicated formal objection. "The treaty specifically forbids the development of technology that manipulates space-time at quantum levels. These scans suggest the Aurora doesn't merely manipulate space-time. It rewrites its fundamental properties. We cannot dismiss the possibility, added Counselor Joan of the Eosari Commonality, that whatever transformed this vessel may pose a direct threat to Council security. If humans have secretly developed technology of this magnitude, or been given it, interrupted Delegate Sewer of the militaristic Valdari Harmony, their metallic voice resonating throughout the chamber. Their message stated not alone. We must consider the possibility of outside interference, possibly from beyond the galactic rim. The chamber erupted into chaotic debate, with accusations flying freely. Some representatives demanded immediate seizure of the vessel. Others called for a quarantine zone around not just the Aurora, but all human-controlled systems until the situation could be clarified. Only Representative Nahai of the ancient Ilderan Communion remained silent, her iridescent eyes narrowed in contemplation. The Ildirans were among the oldest civilizations in the Council, and their voice, when offered, carried significant weight. We should consider, she finally said, her soft voice somehow cutting through the cacophony, that perhaps the greater threat is not the Aurora itself, but what compelled its return. Her words hung in the air, creating a moment of uncomfortable silence before the arguments resumed with even greater fervor. Meanwhile, on Earth, in a secure bunker 3 kilometers beneath the lunar surface, General Marcus paced the length of the obsidian conference table where Earth's highest military officials had gathered. The holographic display at the center of the table showed the same rotating image of the Aurora that the Council was examining, transmitted through encrypted channels by human operatives within Zenth. Impossible, muttered Admiral Kadra, running a hand through her silver-streaked hair. We watched the Aurora disappear into that energy anomaly 11 years ago. Every simulation we ran afterward confirmed total structural failure would have been instantaneous. And yet, said General Wynn, gesturing at the hologram, there she is. The question is, what happened to her? And more importantly, what happened to her crew? The Aurora's final mission had been to investigate an unusual energy signature at the outermost edge of charted space. What some scientists had theorized might be evidence of an ancient transportation network predating even the oldest known civilizations. The mission had been publicly framed as routine exploratory work, but those in the room knew its true purpose had been far more ambitious. The message, said Defense Minister Calloway, tapping her neural interface to project the text. We have returned, not alone. What are we to make of that? It could mean they've brought back representatives of a new species, suggested Admiral Kadra, or that they've been compromised, countered General Wynn. Possessed, replaced. We have to consider every possibility, no matter how outlandish. The Council is demanding answers, said Calloway. They've issued what amounts to an ultimatum. Explain the Aurora's transformation within 24 hours, or they'll impound the vessel for technological assessment, which is diplomatic speak for tearing it apart to see how it works. And if we refuse? Asked Kadra. Calloway's expression darkened. Then we face sanctions at best, military intervention at worst. The Council has long feared humanity's rate of technological advancement. This incident plays directly into those fears. We need to establish direct contact with the Aurora, decided General Wynn. If Captain Rowe is still in command, we need to know what happened out there, and what they meant by not alone. As they deliberated, a heavily encrypted transmission arrived from Zenth. The face that appeared on the secondary display was distorted by interference, but recognizable as an older, more weathered version of Captain Julian Rowe. General Wynn, said the ghostly image, its voice fluctuating between octaves. It's been longer for you than for us, I suspect. Captain Rowe, Wynn replied, struggling to maintain his composure. We thought you were dead. In a manner of speaking, came the cryptic response. I don't have much time. The Council's scanning attempts are irritating the ship. I need you to understand that we cannot surrender the Aurora to them. What we've become, what we now carry, cannot fall into their hands. Not yet. What exactly have you become, Julian? Asked Admiral Kadra, leaning forward. The captain's image flickered, and for a moment they all saw something disturbing. Ro's eyes glowing with an internal light that seemed to shift between different spectra, geometries dancing within his pupils that should not have been possible. We were reconstructed, Ro said carefully, by entities who exist outside conventional space-time. They showed us something coming for all of us. A threat the Council isn't prepared to face. This threat, pressed General Wynn. Is that what you meant by not alone? No. Ro's expression became grim. What's coming doesn't communicate, doesn't negotiate. It simply consumes. We call it the Devourer. We've seen the aftermath of its passage through other galaxies, and now it's found ours. Outside the Aurora, a flotilla of Council security vessels maintained their perimeter, weapons charged but commanders reluctant to fire on a ship, exhibiting such strange properties. Periodic attempts to scan the vessel's interior had yielded nothing but garbled data and malfunctioning equipment. Incoming, shouted a sensor officer on the lead Council vessel. They've launched something, but rather than weapons, the Aurora had released a swarm of what appear to be probe drones, small, geometrically complex objects that moved with impossible acceleration, slipping between the Council ships before they could react. Track them, ordered the Valdari commander. Unable to maintain lock, responded the tactical officer, frustration evident. It's as if they're moving through different layers of space simultaneously. Within minutes, the probes had vanished from all conventional detection systems, leaving the Council fleet in disarray and heightening tensions further. The ultimatum's deadline approached with alarming speed. On Earth, the highest levels of government remained deadlocked on how to respond. Some advocated for compliance with the Council's demands, fearing the consequences of defiance. Others argued that the Aurora represented a technological breakthrough that could not be surrendered. General Wynn found himself caught between these positions, understanding both the diplomatic necessities and the potential importance of whatever the Aurora had become. His secure communication with Captain Ro had been brief and filled with disturbing implications. But one thing had become clear. Whatever had happened to the Aurora and its crew went far beyond mere technological advancement. As the final hours of the ultimatum dwindled, the Council's patience wore thin. A specialized boarding team was dispatched, a last attempt to assert control over the situation before military action became inevitable. The boarding craft approached cautiously, using advanced stealth technology to avoid triggering the Aurora's defenses. Yet as they came within 50 meters of the transformed vessel's hull, something unexpected happened. The space around the boarding craft seemed to fold. There was no explosion, no energy discharge. The craft simply appeared to slide into a pocket of reality that closed behind it, leaving no trace. Panic erupted across the Council fleet. What had appeared to be merely an inexplicable technological anomaly now demonstrated clear hostile intent, or so it seemed to the Council commanders. All vessels, weapons free, ordered the Valdari admiral commanding the operation. Target the Aurora's propulsion systems only. We want it disabled, not destroyed. Energy weapons and gravitational disruptors powered up across the fleet, targeting solutions locked onto what sensors identified as the Aurora's most vulnerable points. Within the Aurora's transformed bridge, Captain Julian Rose stood before a display that bore little resemblance to conventional screens. Rather than flat images, it showed multidimensional representations of the surrounding space, including aspects of reality invisible to normal perception. They're preparing to fire, noted Commander Saren, Ro's executive officer. Like all the Aurora's crew, she showed subtle signs of their transformation. Eyes that occasionally revealed impossible geometries, movements that sometimes seemed to precede the intention to move. As expected, Ro replied calmly. Dr. Lena Cowrie, is the primordial node prepared? In the center of the bridge, where a conventional starship would have had a command chair, floated what appeared to be a singularity, a point of absolute darkness surrounded by a corona of shifting light. Dr. Cowrie stood before it, her hands moving through complex patterns that seemed to affect the singularity's behavior. The node is responsive, she confirmed. But Julian, we should consider that a direct confrontation might accelerate the timeline. The Devourer responds to significant disturbances in the fabric of reality. Ro nodded grimly. I am aware, but we can't allow the Council to tear this ship apart. Not when we're the only ones who understand what's coming. The first salvo from the Council fleet streaked toward the Aurora, beams of coherent energy and gravitational distortion fields designed to immobilize rather than destroy. As they approached the vessel, however, something extraordinary happened. The space around the Aurora seemed to develop a peculiar curvature. The incoming weapons fire didn't impact against shields or armor. Instead, it appeared to follow the contours of this spatial distortion, orbiting the vessel like particles around a nucleus before dispersing harmlessly into the void. What just happened? Demanded the Valdari admiral, watching in disbelief as their attack proved completely ineffective. Unknown, Admiral, responded the tactical officer. It's as if the space around the target has changed its underlying properties. Our weapons weren't deflected. They followed the only possible path through the altered space-time. Impossible. The admiral growled. Increase power. All vessels, continuous fire. As the Council fleet launched its second, more powerful attack, Dr. Cowrie turned to Captain Rowe with alarm. The node is destabilizing under the strain. If they keep this up, we might lose containment. Rowe's expression hardened. We can't stay here, then. Initiate phase jumped to the coordinates we discussed. Captain, Cowrie protested. If we jump now with the node in this state, the spatial distortion could damage Zenth Station. Then modulate the field, Rowe ordered. Keep it tight around the ship until we're clear. As the Aurora prepared its unprecedented method of transportation, the Council fleet's second attack met the same fate as the first. Weapons fire curving around the vessel in increasingly complex patterns before dissipating. But this time, sensors detected something alarming. The space around the Aurora was beginning to fracture, tiny fissures appearing in reality itself. All vessels, cease fire immediately, ordered the Valdari admiral, finally recognizing the danger. Something's happening to local space-time integrity. But the warning came too late. The Aurora's primordial node activated fully, creating what appeared to be a localized collapse of conventional physics. For a brief moment, the vessel seemed to exist in multiple states and locations simultaneously, and then, with a silent flash of light that somehow registered across all possible spectra, it vanished. In its wake, it left a temporarily distorted region of space that gradually normalized over the following hours, and a galactic council in complete disarray. The Aurora rematerialized in a region of space near the galactic rim, specifically in the vicinity of what had recently been the Tyrrhenian Cluster, a collection of ancient stellar formations home to several pre-spaceflight civilizations under Council protection. Except the cluster was no longer there. Where 17 stars and their planetary systems should have stood, there was now only an expanding void. Not merely empty space, but an absence more profound. The light from distant background galaxies that should have passed through this region was distorted, stretched, and dimmed, as if whatever had removed the cluster had also damaged the underlying structure of reality itself. We're too late, Captain Rowe murmured, staring at the cosmic wound displayed before him. It's already begun. Dr. Cowrie studied the multidimensional readings from the ship's advanced sensors. The pattern matches what we observed in the simulations the Havith showed us. This is definitely the work of a Devourer. Can you detect its present location? Asked Commander Saren. Cowrie manipulated the controls, extending the Aurora's perceptual field outward. There, she finally said, pointing to what appeared to be a subtle distortion moving slowly through the void left by the vanished cluster. It's still feeding on the remnant energy. We have perhaps 6 hours before it finishes and moves on to the next system. The image resolved to show what could only inadequately be described as a thing, a fractal vortex of impossible geometries, constantly folding in upon itself while simultaneously expanding outward. It existed partially in normal space, but extended into dimensions beyond conventional perception, making it difficult for even the Aurora's enhanced crew to look it directly. Estimate its trajectory, ordered Rowe. The projection displayed a path leading directly toward more densely populated regions of the galaxy, including, within months, Council core worlds and Earth itself. We need to stop it here, Ro decided, before it builds up too much momentum, before it consumes more lives. Julian, Cowrie said softly, you know what the Haveth told us. A fully manifested devourer has never been stopped, only redirected or temporarily contained. The Haveth never had the primordial node, Ro countered. They never had the ability to rewrite local physical laws. We do. As they prepared for confrontation, an alert sounded. Council vessels had begun arriving at the edge of the devastated region, having somehow tracked the Aurora's impossible jump. They're hailing us, reported the communications officer. Ignore them, Ro ordered. They can't help us now, and we don't have time to explain. Dr. Cowrie, prepare the node for full reconfiguration. We're going to rewrite the rules this thing exists by. On the lead council vessel, Council Nahai of the Ilderan Communion stood on the observation deck, staring out at the absence where a vibrant stellar cluster should have been. Unlike her companions, who reacted with shock and confusion, her ancient eyes reflected something closer to recognition. You've seen this before, stated General Lancer, who had joined the Council fleet as Earth's representative following the Aurora's disappearance from Zenth. Nahai nodded slowly. Not personally, but there are records in the deepest archives of my people, records dating back nearly 1,000,000 years. They speak of the hungering void that came from between galaxies and consumed entire civilizations. Our ancestors called it that which unmakes. And did they find a way to stop it? Asked Lancer. No, Nahai replied softly. They fled. My people once inhabited a different galaxy entirely, General. We came here as refugees from something we could not defeat. Their conversation was interrupted by alarms blaring across the ship. The Aurora was moving, accelerating directly toward the center of the cosmic wound. What are they doing? Demanded the Valdari commander. That region is completely unstable. They're going to confront it, Nahai whispered, understanding dawning in her ancient eyes. They know what it is. Aboard the Aurora, Captain Ro addressed his crew for what he knew might be the final time. 11 years ago, we were consumed by an anomaly we didn't understand. We should have died. Instead, we were reconstructed by the Haveth, beings who exist outside the constraints of our universe. They gave us understanding, enhanced our ship, and altered us to perceive reality as it truly is. They did this because they recognized humanity's potential, our unique capacity to adapt, to evolve. He paused, looking at the faces of the crew who had shared this incredible journey with him. They showed us the Devours, entities that consume galaxies by unraveling the fundamental constants that allow matter and energy to exist. They showed us thousands of civilizations that fell before these cosmic predators. And they gave us the means to fight back. The primordial node, a fragment of pre-universe potential that allows us to locally redefine the laws of physics. We may not survive this encounter, he continued, but if we succeed, we will have saved not just humanity, but all sentient life in this galaxy. Remember your humanity, even with all the changes we've undergone. It's our greatest strength. The Aurora accelerated toward the Devourer, its hull beginning to glow with energies that defied conventional analysis. The primordial node at the ship's heart pulsed with increasing intensity as Dr. Cowrie and her team worked to configure it for the coming confrontation. The Devourer has noticed us, reported Commander Saren. It's changing configuration. The fractal entity in their path began to unfold in new and disturbing patterns, extending tendrils of non-reality toward the approaching vessel. Where these tendrils passed, the very starlight seemed to unravel, leaving behind traces of absolute nothingness. Activate the node, ordered Ro. Full reconfiguration. Dr. Cowrie's hands danced through the multidimensional interface, shaping patterns that corresponded to fundamental universal constants, redefining local causality, adjusting quantum uncertainty principles, establishing conservation enforcement field. As the node activated fully, reality around the aurora began to crystallize, becoming more defined, more rigid than the surrounding space. It was as if the ship was creating a bubble of heightened reality that resisted the Devourers' entropic influence. The confrontation that followed defied conventional description. It was not a battle of weapons or energies as most species would understand them, but a contest between opposing definitions of reality itself. The Devourers sought to unravel the fundamental constants that allowed matter to exist. The aurora imposed new, stronger versions of those constants that resisted unraveling. Where these opposing forces met, extraordinary phenomena manifested. Mathematics itself seemed to fracture and reform. The crew experienced moments where they simultaneously existed across multiple probability states, feeling the ship both disintegrate and remain whole, witnessing their own deaths and survival superimposed. From the council vessels observing at a safer distance, the spectacle was both awesome and terrifying. The aurora appeared to be surrounded by cascading fractals of light and darkness, constantly shifting between states of matter and energy that violated every known physical law. "What are we seeing?" whispered General Lancer, watching the impossible confrontation unfold. "The rewriting of reality," Nahai answered softly. "Your people have evolved far beyond what we imagined possible." Within the aurora, systems began failing under the immense strain. The ship's hull flickered between states of materiality, and several sections phased partially out of conventional existence. Dr. Cowrie worked furiously at the node's controls, her body beginning to glow with the same energies that suffused the singularity. "The configuration is destabilizing," she called out. "The node needs a more direct interface to maintain coherence." "What are you suggesting, Lena?" Ro asked, though from his expression, he already knew. "Someone needs to merge with the node," she replied calmly. "Become its anchor point. I've calculated the parameters. It has to be me." Before Ro could protest, Cowrie stepped directly into the primordial node's event horizon. Rather than being destroyed, she seemed to dissolve into patterns of light that spread throughout the singularity, stabilizing its fluctuations and dramatically increasing its output. "Lena's consciousness is now distributed throughout the node," reported the science officer, voice tight with emotion. She's becoming the new framework." With this sacrifice, the tide of the confrontation shifted. The aurora's bubble of reinforced reality began to expand, imposing its rule set onto the Devourer itself. Where before the entity had been able to ignore or rewrite physical laws at will, now it found itself increasingly constrained by Dr. Cowrie's carefully crafted parameters. The Devourer responded with escalating attempts to break free, creating distortions in space-time that threatened to tear the aurora apart. But with each attack, the node, now guided by Cowrie's distributed consciousness, adapted and strengthened its countermeasures. "It's working," reported Commander Saren. "The entity is losing coherence." Indeed, the fractal patterns of the Devourer were beginning to break apart, unable to maintain their complex structure under the enforced physical constants emanating from the aurora. Parts of it collapsed into more conventional forms of matter and energy, while others retreated into dimensions beyond the ship's ability to track. With a final surge of effort that caused warning signals to blare across every remaining system on the ship, the aurora channeled the full potential of the primordial node into the heart of the Devourer. For a brief moment, everything seemed to freeze, time itself pausing as two incompatible versions of reality contested for dominance. Then, with a silent explosion that registered only as a momentary flash across all possible wavelengths, the Devourer fragmented. Its complex structure collapsed into billions of disconnected particles that rapidly dispersed throughout the surrounding space. Now, just ordinary matter, stripped of the higher dimensional properties that had made it so dangerous. But the victory came at a terrible cost. The aurora hung motionless in space, its hull breached in multiple locations, systems failing across all decks. The primordial node had dimmed to a fraction of its former brilliance, and within it, the patterns that had been Dr. Cowrie flickered weakly. Status report. Roe managed, pulling himself up from where the final confrontation had thrown him. Life support functioning at minimal levels, reported a surviving officer. Hull integrity compromised in 17 sections. The node is stabilizing, but at a much lower energy state. And Dr. Cowrie, the officer hesitated. Her consciousness patterns remain present in the node, but they're diffuse. She sacrificed much of her coherence to defeat the Devourer. Roe moved to the node, now little more than a softly glowing orb. Within its depths, he could occasionally glimpse what might have been a human face formed from patterns of light. "Thank you, Lena," he whispered. "We won't forget." As the Aurora's crew worked to stabilize their damaged vessel, the Council fleet cautiously approached. Their sensors cataloged the debris field where the Devourer had been. Now just ordinary stellar matter, indistinguishable from the remnants of the consumed stars, except for subtle quantum signatures. General Lancer stood on the bridge of the lead Council vessel alongside Counselor Nahai, watching his teams prepared to board the crippled Aurora to offer assistance, and undoubtedly, to investigate its transformed nature more thoroughly. "They saved us all," Lancer said quietly, "and I doubt half the Council will ever believe what really happened here." "Indeed," agreed Nahai. "Fear is a powerful motivator, General. Many will prefer to believe the Aurora itself was responsible for this destruction, rather than accept that such entities as this Devourer exist in our universe." "And what do you believe?" Nahai's ancient eyes reflected the distant stars. "I believe we have witnessed something unprecedented, a human vessel and crew who transcended normal evolution to become something new, something capable of rewriting reality itself. Many will fear such power." "With good reason," admitted Lancer. "Power of that magnitude could reshape the galaxy, for better or worse." "Perhaps," Nahai conceded. "But today, they chose to save us all, at great personal cost. That choice matters." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from the boarding teams. The Aurora was refusing assistance, and more alarmingly, sensors indicated it was building toward another phase jump despite its damaged state. "Captain Rowe," Lancer transmitted urgently. "This is General Lancer. Your ship is severely damaged. Let us help you." After a long pause, Rowe's voice came through, distorted but recognizable. "We appreciate the offer, General, but we can't stay. The Council isn't ready for what we've become, what Lena has become. And there are more Devourers out there, drawn to this galaxy by the same signals that attracted this one." "Where will you go?" asked Lancer. "Beyond," came the cryptic reply. "To the spaces between galaxies, where we can monitor for new incursions, where we can continue to evolve without causing panic." "And Dr. Cowrie is becoming something new," Rowe answered softly. "Something beyond human, but still guided by human compassion. She needs time and space to complete her transformation." Before further questions could be asked, the Aurora began to glow with the now familiar energies that preceded a phase jump. Despite its damaged state, the vessel was preparing to depart. "Captain," Nahai interjected, having joined the communication. "Will you return?" "When we're needed," Rowe promised. "When the stars tremble again." With those final words, the Aurora vanished. Not in the dramatic fashion of its previous departure, but with a gentle ripple that spread outward through space, leaving behind only a simple message broadcast on all frequencies. "We will return when the stars tremble again." In the aftermath, the Galactic Council struggled to make sense of what had occurred. Many refused to believe the reports from the observation fleet, preferring simpler explanations that didn't involve entities that devoured entire star systems or human ships that could rewrite physical laws. But measures were quietly taken. Ancient archives were consulted. Long-range sensors were recalibrated to watch for the distinctive signatures of approaching Devourers. And humanity's position within the Council subtly shifted, still viewed with suspicion by many, but with a new undertone of wary respect. General Lancer returned to Earth, a changed man. Standing alone on the observation deck of Lunar Command, he gazed up at the stars, knowing that somewhere beyond the visible spectrum, The Aurora continued its solitary vigil. "They're still human," he murmured to himself. "Despite everything they've become, they chose to protect us all." And somewhere in the vast spaces between galaxies, the transformed Aurora drifted, its systems gradually healing under the guidance of what had once been Dr. Lena Cowrie. Within the primordial node, her consciousness expanded, exploring the infinite possibilities of rewritten reality while maintaining the core of human empathy that had led to her sacrifice. Captain Julian Rowe stood on the bridge, watching as his crew, no longer entirely human, but still holding fast to their humanity, worked to repair their vessel and prepare for the challenges ahead. They had won a crucial battle, but the war against entropy itself had only just begun. "We've changed," he acknowledged, speaking to the glowing presence that had once been his chief scientist and friend. "But our mission remains the same: to explore, to understand, and to protect." The node pulsed in what might have been agreement, and the Aurora continued its journey into the unknown, a sentinel evolved beyond its creator's imagination, but still guided by their most fundamental values. A human ship transformed, but human still at its core. In the darkness between stars, other Devourers stirred, sensing the loss of one of their kind. And the Aurora prepared to meet them, carrying within it the spark of humanity's greatest potential, the capacity to face the impossible and find a way forward, no matter the cost.